Well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I'm the last speaker before the benediction. The bad news is that this wonderful ceremony is going to come to a close, and I wish it could go on and on. I've had the occasion to give many an address in Vartan's presence over the last decade when we worked together on the Aurora Prize Initiative. And I would typically sit next to him just before going up on stage. And he would lean over and tell me something just before I went on. Today was the first time I don't have that opportunity, but I have to tell you that his presence was here. And he, in my mind, told me, don't be so serious. Start with something humorous. So I'm not going to start with my written comments. Let me just recount one story, as many others have, that to me animates, embodies Vartan. It was 2009, and the then president of Armenia was visiting New York City to meet with community leaders from all over the United States who were Armenian Americans. And Vartan, of course, was one of the main hosts, and I was invited, and I came down from Boston. Given the topic of the geopolitics of the region, I also stopped by at Yale University, where my oldest daughter was studying political science, and I brought her with me. We were at this grand hall in New York. I was trying to recall the hotel, and just as I entered, Vartan was there. We knew each other already for many years, and I walked up to him with my then 20-year-old, 6'1" daughter, who was an elite rower at Yale. So you have to imagine the moment. Here I am, 6'3", my daughter, fit 20-year-old, and Vartan. I shook his hand. He looked at me and he said, "Noubar, is that your daughter?" And we were both towering over him. And he looked up, he said, "Is that your daughter?" I said, "Yes." And without missing a beat, he said, "Now that's evolution." And you have to understand that I'm a biologist by training, and he knew that I knew exactly what he meant. It's an honor to speak here today about my mentor, my hero, and the ultimate man of the world, Vartan Gregorian. For me, a fellow Armenian, he was a compass, an inspiration showing me what was possible for foreign-born Armenians and instructing me on my obligations to the past and to the future. Most people hold more than one identity, particularly those of us who are immigrants. We are called to translate and to navigate, finding our way across borders, both practical and intellectual. Throughout his life, Vartan added together an extraordinary number of experiences, languages, cultures, and ideas from his person and his perspective. Beyond being the sum of many things, Vartan's span of insights and experiences made him a unique multiplication of them. He was a scholar and also a CEO, a seeker of philanthropy and a philanthropic donor. He was an author, an activist, a humanitarian, a bibliophile, a father, a husband, a son, a friend, a role model. Throughout his life, Vartan multiplied kindness, compassion, wisdom, and commitment. He was also a man of words. I suspect every one of you in the audience can, even today, conjure up a piece of advice or a turn of phrase that he said or wrote that stayed with you. It is certainly true in my case. So today, I will try to pay homage in his own words. Vartan once said, "I realize that in each of us, the whole is more than the parts. The multiple legacies are not liabilities, they are assets. They provide one with a critical distance from ideological straitjackets and frozen orthodoxies." Vartan recognized that being a multiplication of things was a safeguard against narrow thinking. And throughout his life, Vartan took great responsibility for sharing his vast, wide-ranging knowledge. He said, "I realized that as a teacher, I had to provide my students with an intellectual compass for their travels from one culture to another, yet at the same time strengthen their knowledge of their own cultural legacies, to provide them a moral, cultural, and intellectual base." He was certainly a teacher to me. I had the profound honor of working closely with Vartan on an initiative we co-founded together with Ruben Vartanian, who's here today. The initiative was called the Aurora Humanitarian Prize and Initiative. Since 2015, we built a movement to honor the memory of those who saved Armenian lives more than a century ago during the Armenian genocide by finding honoring and supporting the work of modern-day heroes who do that work to save people today all around the world. We are joined here today by Lord Ara Darzi, who chairs the Aurora Selection Committee, succeeding Vartan in that special role. Selection Committee members Lema Gabawi, Ernesto Zedillo, John Pendergrass, Dele Olojede are here, as well as Aurora Prize laureates Marguerite Baranquitze, Tom Catena, and Julienne Losange from all over the world. What a thrill it has been to learn from him, to watch his special touch chairing the Selection Committee members, themselves former country presidents and Nobel Prize winners, some of them, as I mentioned here today, and to witness his special relationship with Armenia, which found a powerful outlet in the final years of his life. In speaking about recognizing the Armenian genocide, Vartan has always pushed the world to go further. He said, people put too much emphasis on recognition. It's not recognition. It's not to allow it to happen again. That's what led me to Aurora. He went on to say, I'm very proud to join Aurora because its aim is to reconnect, its aim is to declare human solidarity, its aim is to witness, its aim is to also remember those good Samaritans who at the risk of their life, their fortunes, went to help people who they did not know. When Vartan spoke of the Aurora Initiative, he often recited a quote from Bertolt Brecht's Galileo, saying, "Curse the land that needs heroes." He reminded us that we should all work to ensure a world in which we would not need them. But he also knew that human nature often created conflict and inequities that could be best countered by knowledge and active, compassionate philanthropy. I've been so fortunate to have been able to bear witness alongside Vartan to the strength of humanity across the globe. Our motto at Aurora is gratitude in action. These words are a tribute to Vartan's lifelong legacy. He always insisted that saying you were grateful was not enough. Gratitude needed to be brought to life by deeds. He approached knowledge in the same way. Vartan was not content to simply have knowledge. He was driven to put knowledge to good use. The power that comes from knowledge when shared and applied was the power Vartan most carefully wielded for the good of mankind. One of the most memorable statements from Vartan was in response to being asked what he had done to become so powerful. He answered, "I've never been interested in power, but I am interested in knowledge. And it so happens that knowledge is power." And speaking of knowledge, we all know the special place books and educational institutions held in his heart. In a speech at the White House in 2002, he said, "Libraries and museums are the DNA of our culture. Cemeteries do not provide earthly immortality to men and women. Libraries, museums, universities, and schools do." I've traveled the world and I've met many people, but I've never met anyone who so clearly represented a new standard for extraordinary. We will sorely miss Vartan's immeasurable contributions to so many important projects, most notably the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, which he founded. Like many of you, we are looking for ways to keep his spirit, wisdom, and drive forever alive. To that end, my family and a small group are working together to secure a part of Vartan's legacy for the future at Aurora through philanthropy. Given all that's happening in the world, we feel bound to follow in his footsteps. I will close with a reflection of Vartan as a child. Vartan's grandmother, as we've heard throughout today, was illiterate and never attended school. But like grandmothers the world over, she offered her grandchildren a sense of responsibility and wonder about the world. For diasporic cultures, it is so often the stories from our ancestors that bind us. Vartan wrote, "Since she could not read books to me and my sister, she spun tales. I learned that the stars were human souls living in the sky. These stars were our guardians. They not only protected us, but had us under constant watch to see that we did the right thing. They served as lamps to light our inner world, enabling us to see its richness. They were the seats of our conscience. During the summer nights, my sister and I slept on the roof, flanking our grandmother, and we watched the awe of the sky full of shining stars. The image of a star watching over and guiding us was how I experienced Vartan. For the many years I knew Vartan, I always felt he was looking over my shoulder, looking out for me, challenging me, guiding me, and I feel his spirit here today, watching all over all of us. Vartan was a guiding light, shining for those who knew him and for those he did not. We will always need Vartan looking over our shoulders, guiding us like the stars he looked up to as a child. As Armenians, the greatest strength of our diaspora is that of compassion, to spread hope to those who know and those who will never meet. And no one embodied that hope, that remarkable impact, that guiding light more forcefully than Vartan Gregorian. Thank you, Vartan.